My stepmother Helena threw boiling water on my hands the day before my wedding to a blind beggar. "You won't need perfect hands where you're going," she laughed while I screamed in pain. But when my helpless husband caught the cup before it hit the floor the next day without even flinching, I realized this man could see everything, including my stepmother's darkest secrets. What I'm about to tell you will make your blood boil and then warm your heart. My story has betrayal, revenge, and a twist nobody saw coming, including me. Before we start, subscribe and hit the bell icon because you need to see how a blind beggar became my stepmother's worst nightmare. Now let me take you to the night my father died, and how everything I knew turned into a living hell. I'll never forget the sound of the teacup shattering on the floor. It was a Tuesday evening and my father had just finished dinner. Helena, my stepmother, had made him his favorite chamomile tea. She always made his evening tea. Always. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when I heard the crash, then a heavy thud that made the chandelier shake. By the time I ran to the living room, my father was on the floor, convulsing. His lips were turning blue and foam gathered at the corners of his mouth. Helena stood over him, her face a perfect mask of shock. "Call an ambulance," she screamed, but her hands didn't reach for her phone. They stayed perfectly still at her sides. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed. My father's eyes found mine in those final moments. He tried to say something, his mouth forming words, but nothing came out except a horrible gurgling sound. Then his eyes went blank. Just like that, the only person who loved me in this world was gone. The doctor ruled it a heart attack. Quick, unexpected, tragic. But I couldn't stop thinking about those blue lips, the way Helena had stood so still, the fact that she'd refused to let me see his body one last time before the cremation. "It's too traumatic for you, dear," she'd said, her hand on my shoulder feeling like a spider's leg. The funeral happened within 3 days. Everything rushed, everything controlled by Helena. When the lawyer read the will, I felt my world collapse. Everything, the house, the jewelry business my father had built from nothing, the bank accounts, all of it went to Helena. "As your father wished," the lawyer said, not meeting my eyes. But I remembered what my father had told me just a month before he died. He'd held my hand and said, "The business will be yours, Scarlett. I'm changing the will next week. You're the only one I trust." Next week never came. Within days, Helena showed her true face. She fired every servant who had known my real mother, who had watched me grow up. Mrs. Chen, who had braided my hair every morning for 15 years, was thrown out with just an hour's notice. Then, Helena moved her lover, Gregory, into the house. A greasy, sneering man who looked at me like I was a piece of meat. He took my father's study, sat in my father's chair, and smoked cigars that made the whole house stink. My stepsister Vanessa got my bedroom. She threw all my things into trash bags and dumped them in the basement. That's where I was told to sleep now. The basement. It was cold, damp, and smelled like mold. There was a thin mattress on the concrete floor and one scratchy blanket. The first night I cried until I had no tears left. The second night I just stared at the ceiling, listening to rats scurrying in the walls. Helena turned me into a servant in my own home. I woke up at 5 every morning to make breakfast. I cleaned every room, did everyone's laundry, cooked all the meals. When Helena hosted her society parties, I served drinks while her friends whispered and stared at me with pity or contempt. If I worked too slowly, Helena would slap me. If I talked back, she wouldn't let me eat. Vanessa loved to pour her juice on my head during breakfast just to watch me clean it up. They treated me like I was less than human. One night, I found my mother's locket. It was the only thing I had left from her. A silver heart-shaped locket with a tiny photo of her inside. I'd hidden it in an air vent in my old bedroom months ago, knowing Helena would try to take it. But when I snuck upstairs to retrieve it, I saw Vanessa wearing it at one of Helena's parties, my mother's locket, around her spoiled, cruel neck. I walked up to her, trying to be calm. "Vanessa, that's mine. Please give it back." She looked at me like I was a cockroach. "Finders keepers?" she laughed, and her friends laughed with her. I reached for it, my hand trembling. That's when Helena appeared. The belt hit my back so hard I fell to my knees. then again, and again. Helena beat me in front of 30 people, lawyers, businessmen, society wives, and not one of them said a word. They just watched, uncomfortable but silent. Because Helena was powerful now, she controlled millions. Nobody wanted to be on her bad side. Vanessa filmed the whole thing on her phone, posting it online with the caption, "Our charity case forgets her place." I spent that night in the basement with cracked ribs and bruises covering my back, crying into my thin pillow. 2 weeks later, I woke up to Helena and Vanessa standing over my mattress. It was 3 a.m. "Get up," Helena said. She was holding a trash bag full of my mother's photos, pictures I'd managed to hide. Before I could move, she pulled out a lighter and set them on fire right there in the basement. I watched my mother's face curl and blacken. "No!" I screamed, reaching for them, but Gregory grabbed me from behind, holding me back. "Here's what's going to happen," Helena said, her voice cold and businesslike. "You're going to get married. I've found you a husband, a nice blind beggar I met in the slum district. You'll marry him tomorrow, and then you'll leave this house forever." I couldn't breathe. "You can't force me to marry someone," I whispered. Helena smiled, pulling out a velvet pouch. She poured expensive jewelry onto the floor, pieces from my father's store. "I planted these in your basement room, all reported stolen. I have a police report ready to file. You can marry who I choose, or you can go to prison for theft. Your choice." I looked at Vanessa, hoping for some shred of humanity. She just smiled and took a selfie with the burning photos in the background. "Prison or wedding?" Helena asked. "You have 1 hour to decide." They brought him to me in the garden. His name was Ethan. He wore clothes that looked like they'd been pulled from a dumpster, and his eyes were clouded with a milky film. He carried a white cane and moved hesitantly, but when he sat down next to me on the bench, something felt off. His posture was too straight, too confident. His hands were clean, his nails trimmed, and when he spoke, his voice was educated, refined. "I'm sorry you're in this situation," he said quietly. "Your stepmother paid me $5,000 to marry you. I needed the money. I'm sorry." I should have been angry, but I was just tired. Tired of fighting, tired of pain. "It's not your fault," I said. "She's a monster." We sat in silence for a moment. Then I noticed something strange. His teeth were perfect, straight, white, expensive dental work. How does a homeless beggar afford that? The wedding was the next day at the courthouse. Helena invited 50 of her society friends to witness what she called the charity case's downfall. She forced me to wear a stained dress that smelled like mothballs. Vanessa accidentally stepped on the wedding certificate as we signed it, smearing dirt across our names. During the vows, Helena leaned close and whispered, "Your father would be so ashamed of what you've become." I felt Ethan's hand squeeze mine. His grip was strong, not weak, not helpless at all. After the ceremony, Helena threw us out, literally. She had Gregory toss our things into the street. "Don't come back," she said. "The house is being sold. You're nothing now." She handed me $50. "Your inheritance. Make it last." I saw Gregory whisper something to Helena, something that made her nod with a cruel smile. Then I noticed Ethan's face. He didn't look scared. He looked almost amused. Ethan led me through the city streets, his cane tapping confidently. Too confidently. We ended up at a small house in a quiet neighborhood. "A charity organization helps me," he explained. But inside, nothing made sense. The furniture was simple, but it was high quality. The kitchen had an expensive coffee maker, organic foods. The bathroom had designer soaps and lotions. I looked at Ethan, really looked at him. "How does a homeless man afford all this?" He smiled, still wearing his dark glasses. "I'm very lucky, I suppose." That night I couldn't sleep. I heard Ethan talking on the phone in the next room. His voice was different, authoritative, commanding. "Yes, proceed with the acquisition. Buy the company through the Shell Corporation. I don't want anyone knowing it's me yet." I pressed my ear to the wall. What kind of blind beggar talks about acquiring companies? Over the next few days I started testing him. I'd leave things in his path, a book, a shoe, and he'd step over them perfectly without his cane even touching them. Once I knocked a glass off the counter. Ethan's hand shot out and caught it midair, then he froze, realizing his mistake. "Good reflexes," I said carefully. "Thank you," he replied, but I saw sweat on his forehead. A luxury car started parking outside our house each evening. The driver wore an expensive suit and would bow slightly when Ethan came out. They'd talk in low voices, and I'd watch from the window. I checked Ethan's medicine cabinet and found eye drops labeled for severe glaucoma and blindness. I Googled the medication. It didn't exist. The label was fake. The final test came on day 5. I left my wallet balanced on the edge of the coffee table while Ethan was reading a braille book. I watched from the doorway as he walked past, reached out, and nudged the wallet back to safety, all without his cane detecting it first. He could see perfectly. Meanwhile, Helena was having problems. She couldn't sell the house because my marriage certificate created a legal complication. Scarlett's name was still on some documents. Her lawyer told her she needed my signature or an annulment, so she showed up at our door, fury in her eyes. "How much money are you hiding?" she demanded, looking around at the nice house. "I know you stole from me." Ethan, still playing his role, stood up slowly. "I don't know what you mean, ma'am. We have nothing." Helena stepped closer, her face twisted with rage. "I will destroy both of you. You'll regret the day you were born." After she left, I saw Ethan smile. It wasn't a kind smile. It was cold, calculated, dangerous. That night I confronted him. "You can see. I know you can. Who are you, really?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he removed his dark glasses. His eyes were clear, sharp, intelligent. They looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "You're right," he said. "I'm not blind, and I'm not a beggar." He pulled out a folder from a locked drawer. Inside were photos. Helena with a small vial. Helena at my father's desk late at night. Helena meeting with a forger. "Your father was murdered," Ethan said quietly. "Poisoned. And Helena forged his will." I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. No, that's not possible. But even as I said it, I remembered the blue lips, the rushed funeral, Helena's strange calmness. "Why would you know this?" I asked. "Who are you?" Ethan sat down, his expression serious. "Give me 3 more days. Help me finish what I started and Helena will pay for everything, but she can't know I'm not blind yet. Can you trust me?" I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But I looked at those photos and I thought about my father's last moments. 3 days, I whispered. "Then you tell me everything." Ethan called Helena the next morning. "Please," he said, his voice shaking perfectly. "Scarlett is very sick. We need money for medicine. Can you help us?" I heard Helena laugh on the other end. "Come to the house this afternoon. I'll help you." But I could hear the lie in her voice. This was a trap. When we arrived, the house was full of people. Helena's society friends, lawyers, business associates, and Gregory, standing in the corner with a bulge under his jacket that looked suspiciously like a weapon. Vanessa was there too, her phone out and recording. Helena sat in my father's chair like a queen on a throne. "I'm feeling generous today," she announced. "Sign these papers, Scarlett, and I'll give you $10,000 to disappear forever." I looked at the papers. They would sign away every right I had to my father's estate, his business, even his name. "No," I said. Helena's smile disappeared. "No?" She nodded to Gregory. He moved fast, grabbing my arm and twisting it behind my back. Pain shot through my shoulder. "Sign it," Helena hissed. When I refused again, she slapped me, then again, and again. The room was silent, except for the sound of skin hitting skin. Vanessa's phone captured everything, and I could see her grinning. "Stop!" Ethan's voice cut through the room. It wasn't the voice of a scared blind man anymore. It was commanding, powerful. "Let her go, now." Gregory laughed. "What are you going to do, blind man?" Ethan stood up slowly and reached for his dark glasses. The room seemed to hold its breath as he pulled them off. His eyes were clear, focused, and they looked directly at Helena with an expression that made her step back. "I can see everything, Helena," he said quietly, "including what you did to Scarlett's father." The room erupted in whispers. Helena's face went pale, then red. Who are you?" Ethan pulled out his phone and dialed a number on speaker. "Send them in," he said. The front door opened, and suddenly the room was filled with men and women in suits, police officers, federal investigators, a team of lawyers. "Mrs. Helena Montgomery," one of the investigators said, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and murder." Helena screamed, "This is insane! You can't prove anything!" Ethan walked to the large TV on the wall and turned it on. "I'm Ethan Blackwood," he said, and I heard gasps around the room. Even I knew that name. Blackwood Empire, billion-dollar corporations, technology, real estate, pharmaceuticals. "And I have everything." The screen lit up with video footage. Helena, in this very house, mixing something into my father's tea. Helena meeting with a forger at midnight. Helena and Gregory discussing how to handle the Scarlett problem permanently after the wedding. The audio was crystal clear. Helena's own voice. "Once she's married off and out of the house, Gregory will take care of her. An accident. No one will care about a beggar's wife." I felt sick. She hadn't just planned to humiliate me, she'd planned to kill me. "I own the charity organization where we met," Ethan continued. "I've owned it for 5 years. 8 months ago, I saw Scarlett volunteering there, reading to blind children, bringing them food with her own money she'd earned from secret jobs Helena didn't know about. I watched her kindness, her strength despite everything. I investigated her family and discovered your crimes, Helena." He pulled up more evidence. "When you approached me with your marriage scheme, I saw the perfect opportunity. I planted cameras throughout this house weeks ago, hidden in flower vases, picture frames, lamps. I have footage of everything, every crime, every cruel word, every plan." He turned to me, his expression softening. "I'm sorry I deceived you, Scarlett, but I needed to make sure you were safe and that Helena would expose herself completely." The police moved toward Helena. She lunged at me, screaming, "You set me up! You ungrateful little—" Ethan stepped between us, and Gregory grabbed his weapon. But the police were faster. Within seconds, both Helena and Gregory were in handcuffs. Vanessa tried to run, but was caught at the door. Her phone, still recording, was taken as evidence. The lead lawyer approached me with documents. "Miss Scarlett, this is your father's real will. Everything belongs to you. The house, the jewelry business, all investments. Approximately $50 million worth of assets." He handed me an envelope. "Your father also left you this letter. He suspected Helena might try something. He hid it in the store's safe." My hands shook as I opened it. My father's handwriting. "My dearest Scarlett, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I knew Helena was dangerous, but I thought I could protect you by staying alive. I was wrong. The truth is hidden in the jewels. Look in the Blue Diamond Collection, piece number 7. I love you always. Trust yourself." I started crying, really crying, for the first time since he died. Helena was dragged away, screaming threats and curses. Vanessa went quietly, her face finally showing fear. Gregory was already discussing plea deals. The society friends who had watched me suffer, who had done nothing, now surrounded me with apologies and excuses. I ignored them all. Later, Ethan and I stood alone in the house. "I'll arrange for an annulment," he said quietly. "Our marriage was based on deception. You deserve better." He paused. "I should tell you, I'm engaged to someone else, a business arrangement made by our families years ago, but He stopped, looking away. "I fell in love with you, Scarlett, watching you volunteer, seeing how you treated me with kindness even when you thought I was a beggar. That wasn't part of the plan." I felt anger and confusion swirling inside me. "You used me. Even if it was to catch Helena, you still used me as part of your investigation." He nodded. "I did. And I'm sorry. I saved you, But I also manipulated you. I understand if you hate me." I looked at this man, this billionaire who had pretended to be blind, who had married me to trap a murderer, who claimed to love me. "I need time," I said. "I need to figure out who I am without Helena's shadow over me. Alone." He looked hurt but nodded. "I understand." I walked out of that house and didn't look back. 6 months later, I'd rebuilt my father's jewelry company into something even bigger. I found the Blue Diamond Collection, piece number 7, just like Father's letter said. Inside the setting was a microchip with evidence of all Helena's financial crimes. Father had been gathering proof before he died. With that evidence and the insurance money from Father's death, I launched a new line of ethical jewelry. Forbes magazine did a feature on me. From abuse victim to empire builder, Scarlett Montgomery's incredible rise. I was at a charity gala for abuse survivors, an event I'd organized when I saw him. Ethan, standing across the room, watching me. He walked over slowly. "You look happy," he said. "I am," I replied honestly. "I broke my engagement," he said quietly. "I couldn't marry someone I didn't love, and I've been funding your company's expansion, anonymously, through shell corporations." I smiled. "I know. I have very good investigators now, too." He looked surprised, then laughed. "Can we start over?" he asked. "Honestly this time? No lies, no games?" I looked at him for a long moment. "You'll have to earn it. No more deception. Ever." He nodded seriously. "I have the rest of my life to try. If you'll let me." I didn't answer right away. I made him wait, made him wonder. Because I'd learned something important over these 6 months. I didn't need saving. I didn't need a man, blind or otherwise, to make me whole. But maybe, just maybe, I could choose to let someone in. On my terms. I visited Helena once in prison. She'd been sentenced to 25 years for murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Vanessa was doing community service and had been completely canceled on social media. Gregory had been deported. Helena looked old now, broken. "You won," she said bitterly. "Are you happy now?" I thought about my question carefully. "No," I said finally, "but I'm free, and that's better than happy." I walked away and never looked back. My stepmother thought marrying me to a blind beggar would destroy me. Instead, she handed me to the one man powerful enough to destroy her. Helena took my father, my home, and almost my life. But she couldn't take my dignity. She never saw the truth. The weakest-looking person in the room can be the most dangerous. If this story proved that karma is real and justice is possible, smash that like button. Subscribe for more revenge stories that will shock you. Comment below "Justice served" if you think Helena got what she deserved. Share this with someone who needs to know their darkest hour comes before their dawn. I'm Scarlett Blackwood now, and I'll see you in the next story, where the underdog always wins.